Well, dear brothers and sisters, on this Mother's Day, I'm happy to share with you a little bit about my own mom, who sadly passed away back in July, so within the last year. And this is a photo of us, my mom with me and my sister, back when I was young, maybe 8 years old, I'm guessing, something like that. And that's our home behind us. One thing about my mom was that, she always liked to have a good home, to create a good home for the family. Family was where we, of course, came together, where we found nourishment, even the seeds of faith, and certainly the love of family. And Mom was always thinking about bigger and more beautiful homes for her family. So whenever people would move into the neighborhood or a new subdivision would be created, and by the way, this was in Connecticut. I grew up west of Hartford in Connecticut. But whenever new houses would be built, sometimes it would be very wealthy families building these very big, beautiful houses. And so she would go driving up and down the roads looking at all the beautiful houses and perhaps daydreaming a little bit. This is a house on one of our nearby streets that she loved to marvel at. Very beautiful home, very enormous. And for my mom, who was just a middle school teacher, she was a middle school teacher, but she certainly didn't have a lot of salary to be able to afford a big house like that. But she loved to look at the houses. This is the same house from the backyard, enormous. Mom had big dreams. But that's actually really good for us on this solemnity of the Ascension. Because part of the meaning of the Ascension is that Jesus goes to heaven to be with his Father in heaven. And we know, as we heard in the first reading, that he will send us the Holy Spirit from the Father and the Son. So that's part of the meaning. But also part of the meaning of the Ascension that we're celebrating today is what Jesus said about it in advance. Back at the Last Supper, Jesus predicted his ascension, and he said this: "In my Father's house are many rooms," and some old translations of the Bible use the word mansions. "If it were not so, would I have told you that I go to prepare a place for you? And when I go and prepare a place for you, I will come again and will take you to myself, that where I am, you may be also." And so part of the meaning of the Ascension then is that the Lord is preparing for us a place in heaven. And these old translations, as I said, don't only use the word rooms, they use the word mansions. And that's really good for us to think about, because that means we can let our imaginations go. We can imagine how incredible heaven is going to be. Far more beautiful even than this house, right? The God of the universe, who creates galaxies, has a place for us, and it's going to be glorious. The houses that we have here on earth, as beautiful as they are just a shadow, a pale comparison to the glory that awaits us. God himself is preparing a place, mansions even, for us. It's going to be awesome. So this is a good exercise then for us to think about heaven. And part of the benefit of doing so is that when we think about how glorious our home in heaven is going to be, the benefit for us is that all the problems that we have here on earth, they're still real. We still have to do things, sometimes things we don't want to do. But all of our problems start to become a little smaller by comparison. When we really think about the heaven and the home that's in store for us, our problems start to become smaller. And not only that, but then as we really think about heaven, we can also use our imagination when we come to this home, St. Patrick's, and experience a little taste of heaven on earth. Saints and mystics, and sometimes even lay people that I've met, have sometimes had visions of angels or saints up on the altar. They're here in this place. Our heavenly home is not just a future reality, it's also here and now, every time we come to Mass. And how beautiful it is then to think about that, to think about the reality in heaven and how glorious it's going to be in the future, but how glorious it is right now. And we get to step foot into it when we come here to Mass. Because following the Ascension, where is Jesus? As we heard in the Gospel, at the right hand of his Father in heaven. But where also is Jesus? At every Mass. Right here, on the altar, in the Eucharist. So when we come here, it's not just that heaven is touching down on earth, although that's true. It's that we're stepping foot out of earth and into heaven. And that's a pretty amazing thing to contemplate. So you can even ask for the grace to at least have that faith to see with our spiritual vision, as it were, our eyes of faith, that this is truly what's going on when we celebrate Mass here, that the saints and the angels are with us. And maybe some of us may have a glimpse of maybe something in the imagination, and you might say, oh, that's just my imagination. But it might be that the Lord gives you a little bit of a glimpse of an angel or something to remind us that our true home in heaven is here when we come to Mass. Now, in addition to all this, I count myself blessed to be here at St. Patrick's in this time, because as we embark on this project, this campaign to create a beautiful space in the parish center, it's fun for me as a former engineer to look over blueprints and to get creative and think, what if we have this or this or this? But it's also doing a little bit of what my mom used to do, which is to think about, how can I create a beautiful home? How can I make it a welcoming place for people? How can we enjoy our environment together and experience the love of family together? And so that's part of what we're doing here with this building project, is to brainstorm, and being on the building committee, that's what I get to do, is to brainstorm what are the ways that we can make St. Patrick's a very welcoming place. Because the people, as I've come to discover, all of you are truly very welcoming. You've been very welcoming to me, and I'm very grateful. Now we also want to say that the space that we invite people to can also be just as welcoming as the people here. That's part of the goal of our building project, is to truly make the parish center a welcoming place that will invite people in. Maybe there'll be the invitation after Mass to linger for a while, to stay among family, to enjoy time together. You know, in coffee shops, people hang out and they talk and they enjoy some coffee, maybe some donuts, something like that, right? Well, that's something that people can do after Mass. That's a good and beautiful thing for people to experience the communion that we have here at Mass, to carry that forward to a sense of communion or togetherness as we hang out, as we talk, and as we praise and glorify God, not only when we're celebrating Mass, but also as we go forward from this church into a gathering space. So that's all part of the vision of what we're hoping will become the reality of not only being able to experience our future home here in Mass, but also being able to experience the fruits of that, the togetherness, the sense of communion and family as we go forward into the other part of our home, the parish center. So that's a little bit of our vision of what we're hoping to do. In addition to all that, of course, on this Solemnity of the Ascension, the Lord also said in our gospel, "Go into the whole world and proclaim the gospel to every creature." And we're hoping that the building project will be such that the people who come here will experience such a sense of welcome. And then not only that, but then truly experience or encounter the Lord here at Mass, that they and all of us will be filled up with a sense of the Lord's presence and love and want to go out into the world and to proclaim the good news so that we can draw other people who are lonely and isolated, people who are suffering, people who do not know the good news of Jesus, do not know that Jesus is the one who can bring us peace. And ultimately, Jesus is the one who calls us home to heaven, to our eternal home. That's good news. So that's part of the Solemnity of the Ascension that we're also celebrating today, that Jesus is calling us now as his disciples to go forward and let other people know about their eternal home. But one way we do that is by inviting them here to this home, here on earth, so that they can experience a taste of heaven while here on earth. I wish all of you moms out there today a beautiful, happy Mother's Day. We thank Our Lady for her goodness and love for us and for helping to make this home such a good and welcoming place. And we ask that the Lord might then use us to go invite people to come to this home so that they can experience heaven on earth.